Bhoga, the Nandishwara temple in India, and her nubs. As you can see by the image we're looking at, she has star viewing pools and some of the most ornate temple architecture that we see, including, you guessed it, the nubs. One of the main questions that we get asked is, how do you look for these nubs, Phil? Well, what we do is we look from the base stones here, and we work our way around. Now, of course, don't be conflicted with all the ornate work that you see it. They can always be hidden somewhere in between. Now, I'm sure you've already spotted this one, but there she is. Just one on this wall here at the Nandishwara. An important thing to notice as well is that there's no stucco, no plaster within these walls here. Now, a lot of temples, you have to look past that stucco because, with respect, we're trying to keep the temples preserved, but originally they didn't have them in. This is a different era, but as you can see, the nub builders were here, and there's your first example on the Nandishwara temple. Also around it you've got very, very ornate work here on the top of the temple. The deities below, very important to remember just how ornate these temples are. Were they carved in like this? Was there a different applicable technology at that time? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. But as we see, there is our singular, what we call it, singular ornate nub that surrounds the ornate work, almost like to suggest one of the nub engineers was the architect of this work. Now, further on around the temple, you can see here, I hope the quality doesn't interrupt you as we go deeper into the photo, but you can see here that there's a singular nub there. Again, we talked on the first photo, this has been added later to give stability, but you can see the nubs here and here and here. Now, when we go into the photo, you can almost see a circular, what we call standardized version of the nub, and almost here as well, it's almost like a bevel line underneath the nub, sort of a circular top, more prominent. You can see one on the corner here, and again you've got the ornate work going around the temple, but they're not on every block, not conducive with lifting. Those of you who've been with the channel for a while will understand that comment. It's due to the mainstream using that as their main avenue. Now, you wouldn't be lifting that block there with that and not these, for argument's sake. And you can see the cement, the stucco, however you want to call it, in between the blocks. But nonetheless, here we find our nubs. Seem to be on many of the temples in India. Andrew at Ancient History Criticisms, Ziggy Dan, both do fantastic work on the nubs of India. Go and check out their channels. Fantastic work, gentlemen. But again, you can see that this side of the temple also has our nubs. Slightly different angle to the same image that we've seen, but you can almost see here that where the bevel line is, the standardized nub, but if you look on this side where it's stuccoed or cemented or whatever, it's not here. So this was how it was more in its original state. I was asked the other day the age of some of these Indian temples. Because the nubs are there, you would have to put them further back than what people may suggest. I personally put it back towards more megalithic builder times when the nub builders were around, stands to reason. But I leave that up to you to decide on the evidence that you see. Moving around the temple, again you can see the ornate work carrying on all around the roofs here, and over here on the left hand side got rather a large standardized circular nub, but again that pattern isn't continuing, is it? Down here, I mean, you're forgiven, aren't you, for looking at this part of the temple with the very ornate columns within. Almost looks a different time period, a different build to me. It's just my own personal view. But yeah, this is a standardized nub. I mean, why not on each one of these blocks? Is it just a marker for the engineer to this specific building and temple? Magical image. I think you'll be able to remember this one when we were looking directly at this wall here with that bevel line, but you can see on this angle, this one here at the bottom, it's almost like there's one in the corner there, and the one that you could see here, standardized circular with the beveled line there. And it's interesting that this is on the lower block, not the higher block. You can actually see the stucco here, but not here. It wasn't original to the building, obviously used to help save degradation of the building. Now, further around the temple, come to this feature here, which is a water feature. And lo and behold, just behind it, you've got, again, a standardized circular nub. I mean, they're not on these blocks here. You can see again the cement stucco layer that's been added. It's not over here. So yeah, why have we got the singular nub there? It tends to be around a water feature. We find that at different temples, and we find them around a lot of elephants as well. Not that this is an elephant, but of course it's a very ornate carving. And there we go, it's got the nub just above it. Whether it's for that purpose that it surrounds ornate works remains to be seen. It's not a language nub at this point, but it is telling us something, isn't it? It is telling us something that the builders, the architects of the nubs, were here at the Nandishwara temple in India. And here again, a wonderful example, the standardized nub here with the bevel line, another one here, and again a massive one here with the standardized top, more protruding than these, but again not on every block. Fantastic example of the ornate work that you get in India. Beautiful temple, showing off their nubs as well, might I add. This is an excellent example of what we've been talking about on today's episode. You can see with the added cement stucco here, but originally wasn't there. I mean, we can see why we do it, to help stabilise these buildings, but look on this block here. How would you have got anything around that to have lifted it when it's attached to the right angle of this block here? You wouldn't. And as you can see, exactly the same mineralogy of the stone, and suggests that we could call this standardized, definitely circular at the top. None on this block, again non-conducive to lifting. Beautiful example there. Wonderful image here of the internal looking back out towards the temple, and again we can see another nub here. Doesn't come across here, we're not seeing them on the lower blocks or these higher blocks up here. Wonderful image, absolutely fantastic. I don't want to distort it too much, but again we can actually see it there. It's on the block, so is this going to be one here as well? But you would think they would come all across, wouldn't you? Mind blowing. So it's followed the temple all the way around now, and we're back around looking out through these columns into the main courtyard. So we've sort of almost followed it all the way around now. So we're in the internal of the complex now, and this is one of the star viewing pools. And one of the things that Andrew and I always point out is that we always find nubs near water levels. Now take a look at these. You've got ones that come right up around the top here on blocks, almost like very small ones there. They're all the way down the steps. You've got one here, here, here and here. Also on the sides. I mean, this looks to me like it's an actual corner block that goes back. And the nub comes out on the side there. Now, they're over here. Up on the side, that's a standardised one. You can see that with a circular top. This is like a beveled block here with that beveled line again, which you've got your nub there. And a very definite, prominent bevel line. Whether this is a nub in between it or not remains to be seen, but you'd be forgiven for thinking this might be one here, but there's no escaping that they're absolutely all over this here. So a very prominent factor in the star viewing pools, and the different angles of orientation would give you different views towards the stars. I'm sure any of the Indian temple owners will tell you that as well. But yeah, I find it fascinating that they're all over these blocks here. You can definitely see, I don't want to ruin the image for you, the bevel line that's going underneath them there. And whether these are them as well, I know we're sort of into the photo here and we're losing a little bit of quality, but there's a definite bevel edge there. I mean, on these steps as well, here and here, all there, phenomenal. One there as well. So not just a small amount of them here at the Nandishwara temple, they're absolutely everywhere. So sadly we're about to walk out of the doors of the Nandishwara temple, but before we do so, let's have a look here. Now, I said at the beginning we go across the bottoms, and as we come up you can see one there, standardized circular, maybe one that have been there. I mean, this is almost like an incised doorway, isn't it? We see that all over the ancient world, and you've got one here as well. Now, I'm sure you all know by now, ladies and gentlemen, of the ancient alternative view that the nubs are prevalent worldwide, but this is the start of our India to Russia series with the temples of India. So I hope you will join me soon on the adventure as it continues around India, on the search for more of our nubs and hallmarks. For those of you that don't know, the Ancient History Criticisms Trust, the AHC Trust, is the site folk catalogue that we have put together with an A to Z of the countries that contain the nubs, and as you can see, it's a worldwide phenomenon. These are all the best quality ones, not all of the photos, of course, which will of course be added to in time. And if you're a budding nub researcher or hallmark searcher, then you only need to see the main hallmarks now taking shape within the technological Alexandria. I'm sure if you approach Andrew, all it requires is an email. At some point when it grows far too big and requires more space, then I'm sure he will have a chat with you about that. But it's probably one of the best catalogues on the internet for the hallmarks, and it's an honour to have worked with him for the last few years, if not more than that. Now we are getting old. But yeah, the A to Z of the nubs and the nub catalogue. If anyone would like that, nip across to Ancient History Criticisms channel and give him a shout. Thank you very much indeed.